Insight development. All right, insight development is basically, I'm going to pontificate on a topic and you're just going to join the conversation. And the first topic I'm talking about today is called Good Listeners. And so this one is kind of inspired by, watching my debating students, and someone is debating rather than just talking when you can see them listening, and they're really listening to the other person and then responding to them precisely, or even using the same language that the person used against them. What do you think about it?
I think you're spot on. I think listening is the key to communication. I think people are trained from a very early age just to speak rather than to pause and hear what the other person is saying and then thoughtfully respond.
Yeah, we have only 3 rules in my class in debating. And rule number 2 is listen with the intent to understand, not with the intent to reply. It's just what with most young people are just waiting for their chance to talk rather than actually listening to what the person has to say. And so I say, when your parents looking through the window and seeing you guys all being quiet and then start asking you, why are you not talking? This is a speaking class. Why are they not talking? I say, tell your parents it's because we're listening. And that is a fundamental, like I would say 50% of debating is listening, not just endlessly talking.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it.
All right. I guess it's not that controversial of a topic.
Oh, no. Well, do you want to keep going with this with respect to listening? Because I think it's problematic, especially this picture says it all. No one's listening these days. Everybody's on their phone taking information in. And when they do speak, it's just they're going with their little voice in their head as opposed to going through a thought process as to why am I responding? What am I trying to say?
I'm glad you brought up that picture, because when I ask my kids, the kids, they're always like, they want to be on their devices, and the parents are always telling them no screen, or they're restricting their screen times. But it always, lo and behold, the conversation always steers towards, but our parents are the worst culprits. They got their face in their screens constantly. And every kid tells me, the young kids, grade 4 to 6 cohort, they all say the same thing. They say, I wish my parents would just listen to me. And they're giving them only like a fraction of their attention. But these phones, I'm telling you, it's the bane. Do you think it's changing our culture? It's changing everything.
Yeah. It's definitely, it's not changing. It's changed. It's changed. I remember teaching 10 years ago at a school, and I walked to the back of the classroom, and all the kids, of course, have music stands. Every student had their phone on the stand, and it was all open to Facebook. I don't know about Instagram, it wasn't around that, but you know what I mean. Problematic. People aren't listening. Well, is a lot.
That's actually one of the reasons I love my job and what I'm doing, because in debating, it's like one of the last frontiers of face-to-face communication. Where we just put everything aside and we do things the good old-fashioned way, and people are developing those skills that we take for granted because you and I grew up looking in each other's eyes and not being distracted by phones, right? But I think that's why you and I and people like us find it much easier to talk to people and relate to people, and because we're actually listening to them and we're actually taking in the information and considering it, rather than just looking at everybody as like a gumbo or just a unit.
Yeah. I was reading something just the other day about successful people in all walks of life, and the number one skill was communicating, that they all shared. It wasn't academia, it wasn't passion, it wasn't all these other things that we all think are super important for whatever we're doing, but communicating. And you know it more than anyone. Real communicating is real listening and then communicating, isn't it?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I don't know. I wasn't paying attention to what
all right, you weren't listening either? All right, let's move on. All right, this next insight, I'm going to call it fake tough.
All right. And let's hear the music, please.
There's no music.
What?
Fake toughness.
Hammer.
I find people, they find power in being racist or being bigoted because they all of a sudden, like, they just associate with this larger mob of people that can relate to their racism and bigotry. And all of a sudden they feel empowered by it. And so you get a lot of, people that act tough, they're loud and boisterous, but my point is real toughness, real strong people, you would never catch them puffing out their chest and making themselves look big. That's almost like a natural, like in nature, you see animals trying to look tough because they're really not. Like I think of the howler monkey, which is a docile animal, but has this vicious howl that makes it
Sure.
seem tough. But real toughness is taking a stand for what you believe, or defending somebody who's not strong enough to defend themselves. So I always think about Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird.
Sure.
That's tough. What he did
Yep.
was tough, right? What do you think about that?
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I think you're spot on. And that's a great example. Atticus Finch is really not only tough but integrity, and I think the two go side by side, because the people that are strong enough to just respectfully take a stand are full of integrity and just much more effective, because it comes back to your example in the poor kid that was being bullied in Montreal. I think that act to put themselves out there is tough. That's tough. You know,
Yeah.
putting yourself out there is true toughness rather than the obvious physical one. And that's the difference between, I think, animals that stretch out and do their thing and look tough. They do that because they don't have the consciousness that we do. They don't have a self-awareness. That's innate. That's what animals do. So for us as human beings to do that, that shows that we're thinking like animals, aren't we? We're down on that level. And I mean it. We're not using our own consciousness. So it's these great people in society that take a stand, but they do it with respect, and they do it in such a way that it's not meant to be intimidating. It's what it is. So there you go.
And also, I remember what somebody once told me, that weak people use strong language. And I noticed that whenever somebody's lexicon is like riddled with profanity,
Yeah, that's
I always
interesting. I like
question
it.
their inner strength
Yeah.
and what kind of person that is. Because a really strong person, I just can't imagine them having to speak like that, or present like that.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. I think that's exactly right. It's the people that are controlled and thoughtful that are better listeners and they're better communicators.
So I love it, because we were saying, like, one of the things about debating, you keep hitting the nail on the head: listening, communicating. One of the things about debating that parents don't understand, like, why are the kids coming through the doors in droves when they themselves don't like to debate or do public speaking? But the thing that the parents don't understand, the kids get it almost immediately, is that the debating empowers them. It
Yeah.
actually makes them stronger, a big, stronger, tougher version of themselves, and more
Yeah.
resilient, more able to rise up to the occasion, to not give up, to persevere, to overcome, to find a through way. And they become a tougher, stronger version of themselves. And what kid doesn't want that?
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
I couldn't agree more, Terry. I think you're onto something even a little deeper than that. If I can go down this avenue for a second, I think the real skill with debating and communicating is order of mind. They're able to think in a constructive, disciplined way. And I think if we look at great people in the world, I'm going to put Obama out there. I used Springsteen earlier, but it's because I've got a book on my coffee table with Springsteen and Obama, and both these guys are great thinkers. And you may wonder about Springsteen, what's it? But if you dig into his lyrics, if you watch Springsteen's Netflix on Broadway
Mm-hmm.
that he wrote,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely brilliant. But Obama, man, just the way this guy communicates, this guy, you just feel it. He has structure, he has order of mind, and that's just sort of my buzzwords of late, because to me this is part of the secret of success on any level. You can't let your thoughts just be flying all over the place. And that's what I think debating would teach more than any other subject. It brings the thoughts down, crystallizes them, and brings them out.
It's funny. It's funny you say that, because my daughter says, I remember I was teaching in the prison communication program in the whole. I was teaching them anger management skills, like how to deal with their anger. And my daughter is like, you're teaching anger management. And so it must be like in debating too, it's like I'm teaching everybody's order of thought and structure and theory of knowledge, but in my everyday life I'm a complete whack job, and I
Well,
lose control, and I'm not debating, I'm arguing. And so sometimes I feel like a complete fraud, but I see the good results in the students. Like I know
yeah,
they're
yeah.
they're learning.
Well, the difference there, I think I can speak to that a little bit because I have a bit of that as well, with my own family. The difference between A and B in those two examples is A is filled with emotion. Your family life, the filter that you're using for your all thought processes is just emotion, 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 expectation, goals for your family. It's just not the same thing. So is it hypocritical to be good over here and not over here? You could say yes if you want to go to the definition, but when you get into the human dimension, when you're dealing with emotion and your own family and the expectations of your kids and your life, and that's a tricky
Yeah.
one. It's easy to come over here and say, guys, this is what works, do it. And they'll do it and they'll get the success.
Yeah. If only
Tell your
kids,
daughter
your
I said
children, if
that.
only your children were students.
There you go.
All right.